Trade rumors and returns galore around the NBA as Jared Vanderbilt and Franz Wagner are set to return for their teams, as well as trade rumors around Jimmy Butler and the Golden State Warriors rising. We're going to talk about all and more right after this.
Welcome to the number one place for your daily basketball news and analysis, NBA Central.
What's going on, basketball fans? Welcome to another episode of NBA Central, your number one spot for everything basketball related. I'm the host, Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at NBA Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today. We're going to sandwich this. We got trade news with Jimmy Butler and with the Golden State Warriors. We're going to sandwich those in between return player talks and all of that. I want to start off with this one. The Golden State Warriors reportedly are interested in Nikola Vučević. They joined the Dallas Mavericks as teams that have recently been rumored around having interest around the Chicago Bulls big man. Now, I want to be clear here, right? Nikola Vučević is a flawed player, especially defensively, right? Offensively, you look at him, steady 20-10 guy, 18-11 guy, somewhere around there every single year. And when you look at the Golden State Warriors, this is a level of move that I actually really like for the team. I think that the Warriors don't want to completely mortgage their future and trying to go too far in now. Those sentiments have been echoed by Steve Kerr and Steph Curry as well, and Draymond Green for that matter. But when you think about it, you want to have some help out there. And I actually like Nikola Vučević for this Golden State Warriors team a lot. And people are really reacting to Steph Curry's comments after last night's game saying this: you have a counter to aggressive defenses that want to take the ball out of my hands, try to create advantages off his presence or a shooter's presence at the 5. That definitely helps. And so when you look at potentially having a shooter at the 5 and what Nikola Vučević could bring to this Golden State Warriors team, a guy who can pass really well, which with the fluid movement that the Golden State Warriors like to play with is really important. He can also shoot the ball in mid-range. He likes to post and drive. He's a solid three-point shooter this season, but we've seen you don't want to turn him into a volume three-point shooter, and he wouldn't have to do that. I also think he can help maybe Buddy Hield get out the stretch and things as well when it comes down to it. So Vooch is somebody who can definitely help, right? And when you add to Steph Curry's comments as well, saying this: playing with a space big is a luxury. He changes the look out there. That's what Steve Kerr said, I'm sorry. He can hit three, he can pass. You saw him battling Sabonis. It's a different look. I like to give him some time. That's in regards to something else, but I think when you look at those comments and when you look at who Nikola Vučević is as a player, that can make some sense out there. So I'm not saying that Vooch would all of a sudden make this Golden State Warriors a title contending team, but for a team that wants to look to add something, right, without giving up and mortgaging their future, it can make a lot of sense in that regard, right? So I think that the Warriors are a team that are trying to be buyers respectively, right? And they don't want to really try to sell or mortgage the future farm to get a player in now, but they do want to add something to help with this rut that they found themselves in. All the luster that was on that team at the beginning of the season has basically worn off, right? And they are now a much more, straightforward team when it comes down to it. And that's something that the Warriors have to really kind of take a look at and figure out what they want to add, who they want to be. They're 11th right now, even looking outside the play-in. When you look at them over the last 10 games or so, they have a -9 net rating. They're 25th in offensive rating, 27th in defensive rating, 26th in true shooting percentage. They are second in assist percentage, so there is that. So a player like Vooch helps them, and it solves some things for them. But then again, it's like, okay, giving up a potential first-round pick in Kevon Looney or wherever else you would need to match salaries, is that worth it for the Golden State Warriors, and how far do they think they can make it after that acquisition is what they'd have to ask themselves, and I guess we'll see. Now, the other team that's also been rumored interested in Nikola Vučević is the Dallas Mavericks. This one, Mark Stein has mentioned it on his Substack. Sporting News has mentioned it. And this was kind of before the Derek Lively injury. Now with him being out 2 to 3 months, does that change what they're looking for? Does it actually strengthen their cause for wanting a guy like Nikola Vučević? That remains to be seen. But I do think that the Mavs if Derek Lively is going to be healthy for a playoff run, I do think that they have an added thing. When you look at Nikola Vučević, he actually is one of the best players at guarding Nikola Jokic. And while I don't say that you want to make a huge move just for one matchup, but for the Dallas Mavericks, who are a team that are towards the top of that Western Conference when they're fully healthy, I do think that they may look at something like that. Like, this is a Mavericks team that I think when fully healthy should have confidence that they can contend with anyone, right? You got Luka who can play at an MVP level. We already know that. The balance and the depth that they have on that team is something great. But if you're able to have Derek Lively back healthy, to have that defensive big, and you have Nikola Vučević out there, and what Vuč has been able to, how well he's played when it comes down to Jokic, I'm not saying that it would make or break the series against the Denver Nuggets, but that would maybe add a little bit of incentive for the Dallas Mavericks, maybe to make a move for somebody like Nikola Vučević versus another center. Now, I do think that that if the Mavs want to make a move, it's there for them to make a move. Now, is that going to be for Nikola Vučević? We'll see. But I think ultimately, like these two teams that both are right now rumored to have interest in Vuč, it makes sense for both these squads in different ways, considering what they have. And so we'll see what ends up happening here. If either team makes a move for Vuč, we'll see. But hey, that's right now what's talked about. Now, another one that we want to move on to next is Franz Wagner. Now, he has a injury upgrade, which is really good. We know that the Orlando Magic got Paolo Banchero back. They recently have fallen down the standings after being able to stay really in the top 5 for the majority of the time they were dealing with all these injuries. But now that they've fallen, you've gotten Paolo back. They haven't really quite caught their rhythm, right? They've all the way down to the 8th right now. They've lost 4 games in a row. But with Franz Wagner and his return being set there, he's now been moved up to questionable for tonight's game against the Portland Trailblazers. I tell you what, Franz Wagner coming back sooner rather than later can definitely help this team a whole hell of a lot. And I got to give some credit. It's been admirable the way that the Orlando Magic have been able to play basketball considering all the players that they've missed, right? And I get it. Next man up mentality. Every team deals with injuries or one way or another. I wanted the Magic to avoid the play-in area, and we'll see if they can, right? There's still a lot of season left. But this is a team that, despite everything, losing their number 1 guy with 1 or 2 games into the season, Franz comes in and helps them stay afloat. You lose him. Injuries to other players over that time as well. And they've had different players step up over the course of this run. But right now, it's been that defense, right? They're still 4th in the league in defensive rating, and that's just amazing to see. Now, over the last 5 games, they've actually dropped to 25th defensive rating. But, they'll get back up to that. I think they have such a good system there. They're so well coached. They'll get back up to that. But despite everything, they only have a negative 0.7 net rating on the season. And I think that that's a huge thing because their defense is what really helps them stay afloat. You get Franz back. You get that offensive push that he has. Allow him and Paolo the time to acclimate and get back healthy. I think it's going to be a really big thing for those guys. So shout out to Franz Wagner coming back and making his return back to basketball sooner rather than later. And hopefully he can help the Magic get back towards the top of that Eastern Conference because I think this Magic team in the playoffs, fully healthy, they're going to be a tough out for anyone in that first, second, whatever round. And I'd say this too. If I'm one of the top teams in the Eastern Conference, I want the Magic to get out the play-in because could you imagine being a number 1 or number 2 seed and having to face a fully healthy Orlando Magic team in the first round if they were to make it out that play-in? Could you imagine that? That would be tough for anyone. And that's why matchups matter so much as well for playoff runs. Teams are going to want to avoid that. Let's see if they can. The next player that's set to return is Jared Vanderbilt is finally set to make his return, his season debut against the Warriors. And the Lakers are hoping that this is a shot in the arm defensively that they've needed, right? So it's really good. He's 25. He's not played at all this season. He had surgeries to address with his feet in the offseason. And, it is what it is when it comes down to it. But getting him back could be something that this team really needs. You look, they already added Dorian Finney-Smith. We've heard some rumors of them maybe being open to trading for Lonzo Ball to add another defensive thing. We'll talk about that if it becomes a little bit more fluid there. But I think overall, if this is a Magic team that ends up adding Jared Vanderbilt, Dorian Finney-Smith, and Lonzo Ball from the beginning of the season till whenever, that's something to look out for. Now, you gotta see how Jared Vanderbilt's how long it's gonna take him to acclimate, things like that. But this is a Lakers team that needs a defensive shot in the arm, right? And they're trying to figure it out. Now, I don't think that the Lakers are going to be a team that goes on like a deep run or anything like that. But, hey, they're 5th in the Western Conference, which is something to be said. Like, I think a lot of times people talk about the Lakers like they're some terrible team. They're not at all, right? And I think that they just don't have the expectations that they want to hold. And Lakers fans have to realize that this may be the first time where Lakers fans are forced to have to eat their medicine. As far as you have to operate like a normal team. There's nobody that seems like they're going to bail the Lakers out. But, hopefully with getting players back healthy, getting that, maybe a small move at the deadline, It can make some sense. And Lonzo is a player that I do think makes some sense for that Los Angeles Lakers team if that were to go down. We'll see. All right, with that said, let's get into the last topic for today. This Jimmy Butler thing, of course, it's a story that could be on every episode. I put it at the end because I feel like I've led off the last like 3 or 4 shows with Jimmy Butler news, and I didn't want to do that again. This is not a Miami Heat channel, right? But when you look at what happened, he got suspended for another 2 games, right? Bradley Beal was also sat. This is during a time where a 4 or 5 team trade with somehow the Chicago Bulls being involved in the Milwaukee Bucks has recently popped up. And even you got some people like Mark Stein saying that this could end up being one of the biggest trades in NBA history if they're able to get it done. Not only because of the money moved, but the number of teams involved and the number of players that end up having to be involved in all these teams go down. And so there are a lot of different scenarios that are floating out here in regards to how Jimmy Butler can get to the Suns, Bradley Beal to go to a different team. The Suns recently made that move where they acquire so many more draft picks to add to what they had to be able to offer out on the market for a team. You have those things going on, of course. But I think overall, when it comes down to it, like you just gotta wait and see. I mean, I know that sounds like okay, Hayes, like give me a more firm thing, but I do think I've gone from thinking that Jimmy Butler won't be moved to now I do think that Jimmy Butler could very well be moved at this trade deadline. I just think that the minutia and how much it's going to take to get it done, it's going to be crazy to watch how this trade comes to fruition, because I think this is going to be a trade that has a lot of moving parts. And when you look at it, it's going to be so many different pieces, because that Bradley Beal waiving the no-trade clause is still the biggest thing in that, and this can't get done if that's done. But even then, the Miami Heat do not want to take Bradley Beal back. So having to have him go to a 3rd team or getting a 4th team involved to kind of make everything work, that's why the Phoenix Suns acquired so many draft picks, because they may need that to incentivize any other teams to get involved in this trade to help it happen. And so that's going to be a thing to watch. It could be really fun. I think that, when it comes down to it, the Heat and the Jimmy Butler thing, it's reached its pinnacle. Like they don't want Jimmy Butler to come back. He doesn't want to be there anymore. And while the two sides may be forced to keep working together for now, the divorce is coming and they just got to get it together. They got to get it together. And if they don't, I hate to see what that's going to look like for the rest of the season for the Miami Heat and the rhythm and things that they're building there personally. So, but you guys can let me know how you feel on all that down below. Make sure you guys are following the show at NBA Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, NBA Central Show at gmail.com. And then lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We're the #1 spot for everything basketball related. And I'll see you guys the next time I feel like making a video. Probably tomorrow. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Breaks Media.